Welcome to my budget deck channel, where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today I had a look at fitting with the theme coming up soon in a few days, Starry Knight, and I found a way to play this deck with shaving down a little bit on the super rares here and there. The problem is this deck is very reliant on searches, and these searches specifically happen to all be super rares, and you can't really get around them. You could tweak stuff. You technically could like cut down on the Balefires and play stuff like Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity if you already have them, so you could compensate a little bit. Usually you do want to be playing Pot of Extravagance in addition to it. You'd cut down a bit on the worst Starry Knight ones. You would cut down on Astel, maybe only play two or one. You'd play possibly only one Flamel. You'd possibly only play one Ciel, and that's how you kind of incorporate them. Or you could also cut the Herald of Greenlight, because it doesn't do ultra much for this deck. It's just in here because, you know, hand traps are expensive. This is a budget deck channel, and in a fairy deck with lots of light fairies that actually have effects in the graveyard, these aren't too bad. Plus Herald of Orange Light obviously helps you against hand traps, which is very good, because hand traps ruin your plays, and especially your searches. So if you don't want to be playing Called by the Grave, or want to be playing Called by the Grave in addition, this card is very, very good. I think got limited in the TCG, if I'm not mistaken, because it was used to go against certain hand traps. I think like Dimension Shift or whatever, but that doesn't matter as long as this card stays at 3 till Tier Elements show up. So let's keep on cracking. Or the Ishizu, I think the Ishizu stuff that is combined with it. First of all, we run one terrible card, and the reason for it is because we run triple Starry Knight Blast, and triple Starry Knight Blast is quite fun in this deck because you have lots of ways to get one level 7 light dragon monster back to your hand, or onto your field, so you can get it back to your hand, and then this negate is quite good. It's searchable. Sadly, it's once per turn. Would have been a bit nicer if it wasn't, but we have to deal with what it is. Usually you don't get more than one of the dragon monsters on board per turn anyway, but we play this card in conjunction with Successor Soul because we play so many monsters that might not do stuff. The only monster you really want to be normal summoning that actually does stuff on your field is Rayel and Orbitael. These two actually do things, and what they do is search your spell traps, which then search your other pieces of your combo, and so on and so on and so on. But if you have any of the other ones, or if you actually have Rayel, because this card is only on normal summon, and then it doesn't really do much on the field anymore as well, then you can use Successor Soul to bring this out, send one of your opponent's monsters to the graveyard in the process, and then your trap is also live, which can be quite nice. You at least have a monster that you can give back to your hand. Obviously, it's not the same as having the Starry Knight, Starry Dragon, because this card pops a card every time, and it's not once per turn, so haha, that's quite nice. But yeah, that's that miniature engine that I tried to include because we're lacking certain forms of consistency and certain playmakers and certain small things. So I decided to put this in for a bit more playability. Sometimes it works out great, sometimes it's a bit iffy. So yeah, take it out if you don't like it, but I did give it a try and it wasn't as bad as I thought. Herald of Greenlight, very good if you have to go second. If you have to go first, sometimes it's quite nice as well, because sometimes you will just be setting one or two trap cards, or will be activating one of your things. And even if you have this card in hand but you don't have another fairy, then you can still get it back into the deck with Starry Knight Ceremony. So this is not terrible to have in your hand, and against Power Spell can do stuff. If you want to focus on going second, or if you like the meta is more trap heavy, obviously you can be playing Purple Light, if I'm not mistaken, that's the trap one. I could be putting that in as well. This card I would say, especially in the budget variant, very, very mandatory, because you can stop hand traps, you can stop your opponent's turns if you have to go second, and you can shuffle it back into the deck. You technically, with Successor Soul, could also set these kind of cards and then get the Successor Soul effect off. So it isn't as bad as it sounds. The obligatory Ash Blossom, technically against Max C as well, but Max C doesn't cripple this deck all that much unless your opponent really knows much about this deck and knows when to hit you. Then they will still get like 2 draws off or something, but it's not as crucial as against lots of other decks. But Ash Blossom in general is quite good. You could also play Impermanence. I always include these cards because they're the staples that you at least have one-offs, because you all bought this Master Pack bundle. I'm pretty sure you all did, and if you didn't, think about it. Starry Knight Rayel sorts you on normal summon your spell traps, which is quite nice. Mainly you want to be searching a Ceremony, because Ceremony does the most, but also the 2 trap cards aren't terrible. And if for some reason you want to be searching, you don't have another one of your fairy monsters in hand that you can get away, and you already have one of the trap cards, then you have to get Starry Knight Balefire, and with Balefire then you have to search Starry Knight Starry Dragon. You could also always search one of the other ones if you have the field spell on your board, and then for some reason you want to go recycle through stuff, or technically this card plus any level 4 in your hand is also quite funnily rank 4, so that's also not too bad, because you can search the one of field spell and then normal summon one of your level 4s and then go into a rank 4, because this deck doesn't really lock you into summoning anything else. We play triple Starry Knight Astel literally just by the fact sometimes you will be in a situation where you will have a Starry Knight Starry Dragon in hand, but you don't have a way to summon it on board, which is quite annoying. So this card can be another disruption during your opponent's turn, and these all have graveyard effects that at least boost your monster by 1,000. This one, I think we can get one Starry Knight monster in your graveyard and special summon it, so that can be quite nice, especially in combination with Orbitael. It's not too bad, and so on. So like with the Successor Soul, getting him to the graveyard, that's also quite a neat little thing that you can do. But I felt like this card was, out of the bad ones, is the best one to play at 3, especially in this kind of variant where you just sometimes have to get your dragon out of your hand like this, which is a bit telegraphed first of all, and also well, it's a bit bad, but it's a disruption nonetheless, so it's not terrible. We run double Starry Knight Flamel. It can be nice if you don't have anything else, but you just have your trap card. Let's say you just have stuff in your hand like the Heralds, you get that kind of effect off. You have like Solemn Judgment and one of the dragons in hand, but you can't really do much. Then having this card in hand is not too bad, because when an opponent's monster declares an attack and you have already decimated their plays a bit, so they couldn't negate this with all your other effects, but you couldn't really do much other than that, and you can't summon your dragon, then you can send this card from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, special summon one level 7 light dragon monster from your hand, which is quite nice. And the graveyard effect, funny enough, is a quick effect, not that really matters, but you can target one level 7 light dragon monster you control in your graveyard and return it to your hand. That is how you recycle your Starry Dragons if you ever use them for link summon, link material or Xyz material, or your opponent gets actually rid of them, then that is how you get them back, unless they are banished. Ciel is probably, in my opinion, the worst of this. Technically you can use this card to recycle stuff like Rayel, because yeah, if you get Rayel back to your hand and you special summon this card, then you can use the effect again the next turn to normal summon and search stuff, so it's not awful. Also, you can use this effect to get your dragon back to the hand, and therefore in your turn trigger your field spell to draw a card. So it works in certain occasions, but it's not great. The graveyard effect also it's okay. Like, if it was a quick effect, it would be really, really great, but if you control no monsters, that's already a bit of a restriction. But sometimes it helps you getting back into the game. You can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon one level 7 light dragon monster from your hand. Can be nice. If you ran out of other kind of plays, then this card isn't terrible, but usually it doesn't do all that much. And one of the other good cards is Starry Knight Orbitael, because you can tribute literally any of the other ones for this effect, so you can use it during your turn and during your opponent's turn again, gain some advantage. It's not too terrible. It's not terrible either. And yeah, it kind of does the same thing as Rayel, but it has to tribute itself, but also you can tribute other monsters, so you know, there's a bit of an up and down side for this card in comparison. And the graveyard effect is somewhat okay. If a face-up level 7 light dragon monster you control returns to the hand, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon, so you can gain lots of advantage with this card. And it also doesn't have the effect of like, oh, banish it the next time it goes to the graveyard or something, so that's quite good. So you can keep doing this. It's 2100 defense, sometimes that can be nice as well if you keep summoning it back. And yeah, if you have the field spell up, you then generate draws, you generate card advantage with the effect of Orbitael, and you keep doing it. So this card does quite a lot for the deck. This card pops stuff and gets rid of stuff during your battle phase, which is quite nice. Yeah, can't really say much more. This card is the deck's playmaker. It's not crazy effect wise. It cannot be destroyed by battle with a dark monster or by dark monster's effect, which is sometimes relevant, I guess. They have like also the next card, Starry Knight Balefire, has an effect where that matters, the whole dark thing, because you're the saviors and everything dark is bad and you're Jesus, basically, is what they're saying. So yeah, if your opponent controls a dark monster, you can special summon a level light dragon monster from your hand then, but mainly you will be adding one Starry Knight monster or one level 7 light dragon monster from your deck to your hand, which is quite nice. But this effect is usually a bit go second-ish, not the search effect, but the second effect either way. Starry Knight Sky is quite nice because you can easily go into Link 2 with it or go into rank 4. And in the grind game, if your opponent won't get rid of this card because it's not good enough to focus resources on it unless your opponent can nuke your entire field anyway. You can net draws over and over again. Against the control deck, it can be nice, but there's not all that much you want to be drawn into once you have your setup. So yeah, it sounds a lot cooler than it is, and it's mediocre. You play it at 1 because you can easily search it and it can be helpful from time to time, especially if you decide to go hard in onto the rank 4s and play Zeus, because Zeus is obviously good and you can easily make rank 4s in this deck. So yeah, that could be a card to consider then with Zeus in combination. That makes that deck a lot stronger. Also, rank 4 engine, Utopia double to finish the game after you've annoyed your opponent a bit, or Baguska can be nice. So this card works. If you upgrade the deck a tiny bit, then this card gets a tiny bit better as well, if you don't cut it. Starry Night Ceremony is one of the, well, bigger cards of this deck. You can, well, kind of search, like it's a search and you get your dragon to your hand, but you also have to give up one of your monsters in your hand, which can be a bit problematic. But also that's the very, very good effect. Technically also works going second, but mainly will be used going first. If your opponent activates a card or effect, you can special summon one level 7 light dragon monster from your hand, which is quite good because then usually it's meant to be this card and then this card pops a card, and yeah, that's quite nice. Already you talked about Successor Soul, gets your stuff into the graveyard, special summons one level 7 light dragon monster to get your Starry Knight Blast live, and also you then can target one effect monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. Would be quite, well, before that, but you know, so your opponent has to have a monster to do this, but that's how you kind of, if they normal summon something that you can basically already get rid of it, then get your monster up and then have your negate up, so that is somewhat of a combo. Sadly, it has to target, but it sends to the graveyard, doesn't destroy, so that can come in handy against certain decks. Starry Night Blast, very, very, very nice effect. The only problem is it says when. Ugh, when effects, terrible, don't like them, but other than that, it is not too bad. We ran one Solemn Judgment, also a card you should have gotten from the bundle, because this card stops your opponent from blasting through your aggro, because yeah, spell cards can still be strong, and if you don't have Herald of Green Light to protect yourself from Lightning Storm, then this card might. So yeah, life points aren't too bad either. The life point loss, you can obviously play any kind of card, you can play Max C's for it, you can swap in anything that you have, Infinite Impermanence, Caught by the Grave, anything that's just a filler that does stuff and is a good card in general, especially going first. And the triple Starry Night Arrival. I was not sure what I thought of this card. Also very important, during the main phase, you cannot use this effect during the battle phase. I made this mistake once, didn't finish my opponent. Didn't matter in the end, but keep in mind it's only during the main phase. So if you want to use it, instantly use it. Don't wait for it, basically. And you can get one of your dragons back to hand or summon one of your dragons from your hand. Can be quite good to dodge removal, can be quite good to disrupt your opponent. So if you like draw into this card, then search your Starry Night Starry Dragon with the million ways that you have. This card plus the dragon in your hand is at least one disruption during your opponent's turn. And technically you can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. This is kind of the thing. And in the grind game, this gets very, very annoying. But yeah, it also can be absolutely useless. For the extra deck, we run 2 level 4, 2 Fairy Cheer Girl, where you need 2 level 4 fairy type monsters for. Not very often you can go into this card, but this card can, and you can draw 1 card. Sometimes helpful, sometimes not. It's probably the most helpful out of the rare level 4 Xyz that you have at your disposal. This card, well, if you need to finish your opponent, it can be quite nice, plus you will be controlling a face-up spell most of the time, so it's not terrible either. If you play it with Zeus, obviously that card is also nice. Burn or Visor, if you ever have to attack directly, can happen. You have multiple Xyz monster, technically, could come up, probably won't, but could. Obviously replace that with good ones, like stuff like, even Starleech Paladin is probably better than Burner Visor. Rhapsody for graveyard stuff, this card for if you need a 3000 attack point monster, sometimes you do. Removal, more removal, level 7 stuff, more level 7 stuff, more level 7 stuff. They're all not very good, more level 7 stuff. All of the level rank 7 things don't really do all that much, but technically you can go into them, and sometimes you need the attack value or one of the wonky effects that they offer. Geonator Transverser, so obviously the nightmares are good if you have them, but not budgety. And Power Code Talker, not too hard to go into, so this card can sometimes help with the 2 effects that this card has at its disposal. Cards to mention is Ties of the Brethren, obviously. Ties of the Brethren, very good because they're all level 4 fairies, so you can summon out different ones, and then you get into this one, and then this one sorts as your spell trap cards, and technically you can also play Barrier Statue of the Heaven then, so that is a bit annoying for your opponent, and so on. There's lots of stuff you can do with this, but it's an ultra rare, and it feels a bit like that grass in like these 60 card decks. When you draw it, it's like really good, but I don't know, you don't build your deck really around it. It's a good card to include if you have it, obviously. Stuff like to consider, Pot of Prosperity or Extravagance. If you lack some of these and you don't want to craft them and you want to try out the deck first before you go full ham investment on this deck, then technically you can substitute 2 of this with like Pot of Extravagance and 1 of them, then you still keep your options open to at least be able to search 1 of them in your deck and so on. It's quite fun. You could add just 1 Pot of Prosperity just for extra consistency, but technically this deck is like a control deck and wants the extra 2 cards, so the draw would be quite nice. Access Code Talker isn't too hard to actually go into in this deck. To finish your opponent, you would obviously have to fill up your deck with more, your extra deck with more linked monsters, so the effect works, but it is quite easy to go into this eventually if you're just lacking the damage to finish off your opponent, and that would add this. And obviously you could play the original Starry Knight, Starry Dragon instead of this one if you like to stick with the normal dragon kind of shenanigans. And if you drew one of them out of, I think they're in a legacy pack, then yeah, a mystical dragon that burns away the unworthy, exactly, dark monsters, the unworthy, with its mystic flames. That is your OG, so think about that if you want to play this card instead, because the attack value is insane. I think it's better than Dark Magician in total, isn't it? I don't know. Don't want to say wrong things here. Maybe it's the exact same as Dark Magician. Hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a good day.